Welcome back, everybody, to Horizontes. This is our third session of Horizontes. For those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. Before I introduce our guest, I want to give a little background on this initiative that we started a couple of months ago at AMI. AMI, for those of you who don't know us, is Latin America's leading independent market intelligence firm. We essentially help companies make decisions such as, should they enter a market, should they buy a company, should they launch a product, how should they distribute their marketing spend, etc. And in doing so, if we go to the next page, we've been doing this now for 30 years, first under the brand Info Americas and now under AMI. And we're really in the business of helping people make decisions. And so we work in a number of different verticals, including healthcare, which is featured today in our interview with Mauricio Ortiz, Regional President of Boston Scientific. But we also work across other industries. And one of the things that we've realized in working with so many Latin American business leaders, be it leaders of multilatinas or the regional presidents like Mauricio, who are operating a large regional operation of a multinational, we realized that the sources of sort of inspiration and teaching and guidance that they have that is from Latin America is very limited. So oftentimes, you know, these are senior level executives. They have access to best practices in leadership, but oftentimes they come from teachers that are based in Europe or the US, and very few or very infrequently is that source of guidance coming from Latin America. So we invented Horizontes as a leadership forum. For now, it is an online series of interviews with people that we know to be great Latin American business, political, academic, and other leaders. And each month, I have the pleasure of interviewing them, one of them. And we also follow up by sending to all of our Horizontes subscribers a free service, a monthly reading list, where we select articles, white papers, interviews, and other sources of information that we think provide a strategic view of the market. Today, we're speaking with Mauricio Ortiz. Previously, our first inaugural session was with Marin Lau, who runs Latin America for Meta. And coming up in about a month, I'll be speaking with Dominique Verchot, President, South America at Korn Ferry, specifically providing practical guidance on how to climb the corporate ladder. And in January, I'll be speaking to Kelvin Dushnitsky, former CEO of two of the largest mining operations ever established in Latin America, Barrick Gold and Anglo Gold Ashanti, he has a tremendous experience dealing with dealing with community support or opposition to big projects, something that I think is a growing phenomenon in Latin America. So we've just posted in the chat the link so you can sign up for those. Unfortunately, we oblige you to sign up for each event. Zoom has a limited capacity to sort of remember registrants and repeat those registrants. So if you are interested in those, please sign up. And on the page listed above on here, you'll see all future speakers, and we will have two more quickly posted there very soon. So if we could just go one more page. I think I talked quite a bit about AMI. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about our market intelligence services. And with that, and without further ado, I would love for Mauricio to join the call now, and we can get rid of this sharing of the document and just have Mauricio and I on the screen. Mauricio, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, John. First time we are not sharing the same panel, so I have you at the other side, which is good for me because when we were in the panel together, I always ask to be first, because then afterwards they will say, "Oh, it was great seeing John."
Oh, please! I was going to say just the opposite, my friend. You know, one of the reasons I wanted you on this is because you are such a a natural and gregarious public speaker. And I think what's really interesting about you, Mauricio, is not only have you got a very storied career in a very important sector, healthcare, but you're just a natural leader. People are drawn to you, and it's not as easy to showcase that in a Zoom call as it is in person. But here we are. And thank
Yeah,
you for
definitely.
being here.
Thank you, John, for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. Before we get into the meatier subjects of leadership and healthcare in Latin America and selling into a regulated market, I think it would behoove us all to learn more about your own background. I understand you grew up in Bogota, where curiously I am calling in from today. And yeah, and in Chapinero. And I understand you studied at the Javeriana, which is a wonderful university in Bogota. And you came out with an economics degree. What drew you to the healthcare sector?
An accident, luck, John. Basically, I got out of college, and many of us went to the banking industry. So I went to the banking industry, and I started my career at banking. Did what I think a very nice career there. I got 8 to 10 positions there. But I went from a credit analyst, director of credit, director of collections, commercial director, and in all this kind of things ended up in MasterCard. And so I was a good, nice banker, commercial guy in the time where we had 2 assistants in the front of our door, all these kind of things. And got a call from Abbott Laboratories, basically related to banking, and went there and found that they were looking for people from other sectors, and they offered me a job. So I came in to manage nutritionals. Can you imagine an economist going back to proteins, to lipids, to amino acids, isoleucina, leucina, valina, all these kind of things? And I thought I would go back to the banking industry. Really,
right.
Yes, I thought about it because this was too technical. And I did have a meeting with a guy there, and he told me, hey, this is not about product. This is about having good teams. And that's what I have always have the blessing to have. And so I made a great team, and I made a whole career there in Abbott. Went through the hospital division, pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, all these kind of things, and became part of the industry.
Okay. Well, that helps explain a little bit more. I did not realize you had all those antecedent experience before Boston Scientific, because you've had a long and storied career at Boston Scientific, and you were named country manager in Colombia right off the bat, or very, very early on, I believe, in your tenure at Boston Scientific. How did that's quite a leap, to go into a new company and be in charge of obviously, arguably the 3rd largest market or 4th largest market in the region. How did that transpire? What made that happen?
I have the twofold story of that. I just made 2 years ago 25 years in Boston Scientific. So the operation in Colombia, or being country director in Colombia, is also 25 years, because the way that I got there was I did the startup. So I started the company from zero. And I think what happened was I had some experience with my other company to build a business in Peru, and I built a business in Ecuador. And I was able to help or to do the startup in Venezuela for another company. So when I did that, I left a lot of people that knew that I had done startups, and Boston Scientific in the other side was trying to do a startup, and they called my previous bosses to ask them who do they know that had experience in this, and somebody recommended me, and I got a call, and they said, "Hey, would you start this business for us?" My curiosity, John and guys, is that there was nobody planning to open a business in Colombia.
Right.
Like I said, oh my God, I'm so good. They are trying to make a business in Colombia. They are finding the right guy to do it. But this was Paulo Escobar had been like hunted, let's say, years ago. And this wasn't the moment of the new narcos. It was the moment of the guerrilla. It was the moment of the bombing. It was the problem of a lot of companies being threatened. And it was a time where people just went out to their farms and they were kidnapped. So I said, wow, these people are starting a business in Colombia. Years after, I figured out that this came from a meeting in Boston from big officials that they said, let's open Latin America. And somebody told them, let's open Colombia. And they didn't know what was happening in Colombia. So
oh, really?
I thought because I was so good, and it was just because there was like a little part of a mistake of let's open a country. The good thing is I did great. So I did open the operation in Colombia, and when I left to Brazil, I left as today one of the company, the record in the whole history of Boston Scientific of a company that opened being cash positive and profitable from the first day.
Wow, fantastic! Look, I want to delve into that, and I want to delve into Brazil, but I want to remind everyone who's dialed in that they can post, and they should post, questions in the Q&A. It should be on the bottom ribbon of your screen. Please post your questions there. We'll look at them, and I will try to weave them into this discussion with Mauricio. So please feel free to do that rather than wait till the end. So Mauricio, you know, it's amazing the confluence of things you just talked about. First of all, the fact that it was your entrepreneurial skills that got you into Boston Scientific as much as your knowledge of the healthcare system, and the sort of, you know, the accident of almost corporate naivete in choosing Colombia at that moment in time. I think that, you know, I think that speaks to it's a very unique story, yours, and yet a lot of people find themselves. I always tell people, if you're, you know, and this is from the point of view of someone who grew up outside of the region, but then made his career inside Latin America, if that is of interest to people, I always say, don't sit around and wait for a job offering. Just get there, start doing things, you know, learn on the ground, and eventually opportunities will present themselves, you know. And I think your own trajectory is testament to that. Let's talk about the transition to Brazil, because I think for a lot of people who started in Spanish-speaking Latin American countries, Brazil is often a sort of intimidating mountain that they are afraid to climb. And even though, you know, Spanish speakers can learn functional Portuguese fairly quickly, it's, you know, Brazil presents itself, and always, I think, in corporate structures, does a good job at making the case that it's different and that it can only be run by Brazilians. So what was it like for a Colombian, albeit a Colombian who'd already worked in some pretty challenging markets in South America, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru? What was it like for you to move to Brazil? And what tips would you give to others who come out of other Latin American markets and who have the opportunity to work in Brazil?
I think first, I could tell you that I didn't have a choice. So when I moved to Brazil, actually there was two challenges. One, go to Brazil, as you said. I was intimidated by the size of Brazil and by the language. But the second part that it was really hard is that somebody had done a startup in Brazil who was losing money, big money. but I was not moved to Brazil as country director Brazil. I was moved to Brazil as sales manager, sales manager, cardiology, Sao Paulo. So I didn't move from the big position to the other big position because there was a big problem. Their company was losing a lot of money. And my boss, which I love and a great mentor and guy, he told me, you have to go to Brazil. Mauricio, there is no choice. I want you to do exactly like you were doing a startup, but with a line of products and a specific place. And I went to Brazil, and I went there, and here comes the first step. When I came in, expat, a home where other expats were, and had a driver, nice car, everything. The first day I got to Brazil, second actually, I gave told the country director at that time, please, I don't need a car and I don't need a driver. Get me a car, I'll drive my car. He would say, you are crazy. This is Sao Paulo. You have no idea of Portuguese. I said, my friend, let me work my way and let me do my own way. Well, he didn't have a choice because it was, by the way, it was not him who took me down. It was our big boss who had sent me there. So I just got all the power, fortunately, to do what I know how to do. So I went down to the street. I had to call from when I wanted to place gas in the car, I had to call my friend, the controller of the company, and tell him, hey guys, can you please ask the guy to put gas in my car? And all those kind of things. But I did went to see customers for the first time without any Portuguese, without anything, just trying to do my best. So my Portuguese, the one that I learned, was Português de rua, real Portuguese from the street. So my first words were all the really bad words, but I learned them. And what I did, the tip, it's I went to Brazil knowing that I didn't have a way back. So this will be my country. This will be the place where I will live. This is the place where I will raise my family. And this will be the place that I will stay forever. So I said, I will make friends, but I will make all the expat friends. This thing that happen in the nicest schools where you only go at the evenings to where other expats are, and then you continue to talk with the Argentinians, Colombians, whatever. No, I said, my friends will be Brazilians. I will learn how to cook in Brazil. I will learn how to drink beer with Brazilians. I will go to the facendas, and I will be a great singer of música sertaneja. And that's exactly what I did. And 6 months, I don't know, 8 months since I started, results start coming great. And 8 months later, I was named the president for the Brazil operation, and then continued to do another divisions. And it's probably the best professional time in my life, getting a company from 0 to $100 million, 9 years. And that worked like really good. And it was in the time exactly 2000, Lula came up to be the president for the first time in Brazil, being the dollar, I remember, at 185 and climbing up for the first time to 4 in 3 weeks. And I was there, I was sitting there doing a startup, and fortunately everything went well. I love Brazil. I have my Brazil passport. I feel very proud of Brazil.
You know, that is such great advice. It reminds, when I moved to Mexico, I spent the first year I lived in Guanajuato, and there was a quite a famous orchestra there, and it had lots of Russians and Eastern European musicians in the orchestra. And I found that if I told people, you know, if people thought I spoke English, they all wanted to practice their English with me, and I didn't want that. So I told people I was Russian. And so they would just keep speaking to me in Spanish. And so, and you know, they couldn't distinguish a gringo accent from a Russian accent
Yeah.
necessarily. So it really helped me to sort of ensconce myself in Mexican culture, and I didn't hang out with any foreigners. I mean, not one. And I think, you know, I don't know, you have to go to such extremes, but I think what you know, to really, you know, and even in Mexico City, I joined a sports club in Club Condesa, and I was the only
Yeah.
gringo. I was the only gringo there. There was not, you know, whereas a lot of the sports club were either the Spanish club or the French club, etc. I went for the Mexican club. So that was
That's the way to do it. You have
that's
to
the way to
get
do
it
it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And you know, even as someone coming from other parts of Latin America like yourself, uh, and the language in theory should be easier to transition to, it's still very comforting to be around people from your own country. And so to make that leap, especially if you're with a family, of course, is that much braver, you know, because you can't do it alone. It means your family also has to embrace the country and embrace the language. And that's
Yeah, and you know, the first meetings with customers were just so funny, because I you know, I'm not a good, very product driven guy. Like healthcare is, it's where I have worked, but I'm not the best to describe our product line or to be a really technical guy. So the first time you meet the customers, people are asking you for what does this product does, what is their components, and I really struggle on that. So the first thing I realized is I had to find a good Portuguese person that was technically really good and
right.
grab him or grab her and take them to all the visits. And I said, I will do the talking, the general talking. And then when people ask, you go with your Portuguese. And that model worked pretty well.
Well, that's interesting. You know, a good leader understands his or her shortcomings and finds people to fill those gaps. And you mentioned early on in the conversation that you learned from others the importance of team building. Can you talk a little bit about the track record? Because I know I think it's been what, at least 15 years you've lived in Miami in a regional overseeing position, which means you're responsible for many markets. Can you talk about Boston Scientific's track record across the region over that period of time, and what has been some of the keys to that success?
Well, I think the first thing success that I learned the hard way when I did all my experience with the startups and a lot of things is, I think I will start with what I see a lot of mistakes and what have seen the things that we have done different. Not that we haven't made mistakes, but the things that we have done different is most of the companies want to bring to Latin America or to their markets their whole portfolio. So they want to bring all the divisions, all the products line, everything, and then create a monster of big company that has a lot of divisions and a lot of products. I didn't do that. What I did, and when you tell me about growth, yes, I have been doing double-digit growth consistently, but growth in sales is not I think my top key indicator. I learned from a boss one time that the best mentality you can have in a public position, in a public traded company, is that you don't respond to your boss or what the company wants. Is what the stockholder would like you to do. So everything that I do goes with the mentality. If I were speaking not to my boss, if I were speaking to a stockholder, what is the expectation of that stockholder? Hey, we put you there in Brazil, or we put you there to manage Latin America for what? And the basic answer a lot of times is earnings per share. So It's not it's about being what people call profitable growth. Well, that's the success in Latin America, making that happen. Oh, that's a big thing, and I will tell you a couple of things of how to drive that. But it's not about doing 12 or 15 or 25% growth in a year for many years. It's about how much is your contribution for earnings per share for a stockholder. How much were you able to bring that growth to the operating income or bottom line? And so that was always my thought. And with that, then I can answer you the first part. The growth is, what portfolio should you bring for Latin America? And the first type of things you have to consider is that the valuation and the change in currency will hit you at some time. And you have to bring products that have a nice, what I call bandwidth, railroad enough that when anything happens, you are not getting to the problem that a lot of companies face in Latin America, is that the more you sell of one product, the more you lose in the product. And then people get excited because they are selling so much of a product, and somebody raises up their hand and says, hey, the most we sell of this, the more we lose. So I always try, like, let's say, to put it in terms of today, do like a type of algorithm which will tell me which were the products in which market, where are the needs of the product, and which should be the product line that I launched, to ensure that it doesn't matter if the inflation, if the devaluation, if the dollar goes to 5 or to 4 or to 13 or to 69 or to 104, Argentina or Chile or whatever, I could always have a healthy P&L that would let me manage my company. So we have had a great history of growth, but the one thing that the company always recognizes, and probably that's what I've been 25 years here, and no other country director in the whole world, Boston Scientific, has lasted so much. It's because probably because I have been driven good results to the company over time.
Okay. And you said, beyond the managing currency and right selection of products, do you guys manufacture any of your products in the region, or is it all imported?
We do. We have a beautiful place in Costa Rica. We have actually two big manufacturing facilities in Costa Rica, in Coyola and Heredia, state-of-the-art for the company. We have production in Puerto Rico, in El Dorado, and now we have heart valves being done in Belo Horizonte. So we manage, we have there our manufacturing sites that have been, very proud of LATAM. They are today state-of-the-art for the FDA. They are models, and for me that's so nice, because it's Latin America, isn't it? People expect you to do a lot of things wrong, everything, and these are state-of-the-art facilities.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you tell us how you're structured in terms of where you have your own offices, your own sales teams, versus relying on distributors in perhaps smaller markets?
Yeah, we are different in Latin America than in the rest of the world. Our CEO, Mike, and before Jim, and everybody has been very respectful of what the model that I have, and I have a different model in most of the parts. We carry like 8 divisions. We are cardiology, urology, endoscopy, neuromod, electrophysiology. We have a lot of divisions, and those divisions in Europe, for example, they are the pizza. It slices from the divisions and then goes to the countries. In my model, okay, I am the old style, but I like it where I have country directors, and each country is their kingdom, and they choose the products they want to sell. They make their plan from account up, Salesforce type of approach. They decide what they sell in their markets. They are like I always tell them, like the kingdoms, profitable, separated from corporate, which doesn't happen in other markets. So it's there is a business in Brazil and there is a business in Argentina. They don't mix. And my headquarter is a very, very small headquarter, and I want to keep it like that. I define ourselves as the tower of control, like the Miami International Airport Tower. The guys that fly the planes are the countries. The guys that crash the plane are the countries. The guys that do with their passengers what they think is the best is the country, is the planes. We only tell them, hey, you have, I can see there is turbulence here, and we help the planes land. We help the planes go around. So I have a small staff in Miami. Any position that comes up, I want them in the countries, because I could be tempted to get a lot of people. And I am actually, I'm not a profit center. I'm just a heavyweight for the rest. So the best way, if you need a position or not, is tell them, would you put it in Argentina? Oh, no. Okay, so that was not a good position. If you are willing to pay for it, it's a good investment. If you want me to do your investments here in Miami and create a place, no, I'm not doing that, my friend. Right. So it works.
No, that's, you know, I also believe in that. You define it as an old-fashioned model, where the country manager, he or she, is the authority in that country, and then you might have product lines reporting to that person, as well as reporting back to product line leaders in corporate head office. The reason I've seen it work better is because of the importance and just the recognition in Latin America of the authority of a country manager. And you might be in charge of just a line of business. It might be a huge business, but it's not the same. It doesn't resonate the same. And so when you're dealing with government in particular, but even when you're dealing with big customers, it's just not the same. Do you agree with that, or are there other reasons you prefer that model?
No, I just like it, and I will tell you why specifically. And I think this is starting to change with this movement of currencies, inflation, all this kind of things. What I tried the most, John, is that the ownership of a P&L comes starting from a sales manager or territory manager, because then you can sense very fast the changes you need to do in market. I have competitors, big, huge competitors that get to a model in Latin America where they have a sales manager and they tell them, hey, guys, your only purpose is to sell. You just sell. Let us take care of the P&L, let us care of everything else in corporate. And what happens really fast is that they win a lot of business because they go through pricing. They take down prices, everything. And then the company, when they realizes they are not making any money in Latin America, then they leave. The models of distributor versus direct, in the last 3-4 years, a lot of companies copy us on going direct in most of the market. Now they came back to distributors. Now they don't know how to do it. This is not easy. I do have a mixed model, but it took me years to build it, and it's really hard. It's really hard. If you want to, I'll tell you a couple of minutes. The distribution model in the pharma industry, in the medical device industry, is something you have to be very careful. I went through the years where there were big distributors that say, I have a market, I have this. You will give them products and they will use a recipe that worked a lot of times. They will ask you for your products, then they will put the products in the market, then they will get you more products until they became your first customer or your first 3 customers. Then they will stop paying, and they said they had difficulties. Then they tell them they need better prices. Then they start building homes, and then they start having a nice farm, and the distributor comes to you and have better cars than your company has. And then one day they will tell them, hey, the situation is very difficult. And then you will say, okay, let's cut the distributor. Then you cut the distributor, then you go to court. And then everything that you have gained in operating income goes to the lawyers and to the distributors. That's the story of hundreds, John, hundreds of companies in Latin America. So
that reminds me, yeah, that's so true. It reminds me, my first ever job in Brazil, which was 94, 95 maybe. Big I won't use company names, but big supplier of sporting equipment.
Yeah.
Their distributor got behind by about up to 270 days behind on payments.
Yeah.
And what did they do? They just it turns out that the distributor had stripped off the logo of the manufacturer on all the product and put the distributor name. So when they finally got cut off by the manufacturer, they just switched to another supplier, and nothing happened to their business. They went on doing just fine, and they wrote off, the manufacturer wrote off millions of dollars of inventory sales on their books, and the distributor was still maintaining its market share and did quite fine, thank you very much. So that is absolutely true. The power balance with your distributor and making sure that you're still in control of that
is exactly that. If you give products to your distributor, you actually give them the market.
Right.
What you have to do is to give them the product so that they can do the logistics. If it doesn't make sense that you have an office in Belén de Pará to cover Amazonia, Belén de Pará and Manaus, for example, you want a distributor, but you want to know the market, you want to own the market and give them the products for distribution. On the other hand, there are great distributors. There are great people in Latin America, but great, the best people that get audits from our company that they are not easy for compliance, that they are really hard, people that in the top of the 20 biggest distributors in the worldwide for Boston Scientific, and we have a lot. There are 2 or 3 from Latin America that make the first places, not because of the number of sales they do, but the compliance, the training, the way they keep their books, their transparency. So for me, it's a very good, let's say, brand of Latin America within the company. So when this lists come up and legal go up and tell, hey, Latin America is in the top of compliance, Latin America business is in top of this. Well, the good thing is people don't ask questions. So they leave Latin America alone. Yep.
It's very interesting, the comment you made earlier, which was rather than trying to satisfy the next up the line of command, I take on a shareholder point of view. One of the great questions that came in from Rio de Coelho is, how do you, what are the challenges of selling Latin America, or keeping Latin America as a priority market, particularly at the board level of a publicly traded company?
That's the very good question, and I will tell you why. This goes like this. When you go to JP Morgan in February, or you go to the meeting where you report or you talk about forecast for Boston Scientific Corporation, a company over $10 billion or whatever, my contribution in Latin America is marginal. It's nothing. I mean, I could disappear tomorrow, and for that big company, for that big moment where Boston Scientific tells what will be the growth for the next year and the strategies and everything, my numbers doesn't mean anything. Nothing. If I don't go, if I don't report, nothing will happen to this company. The stock won't change at all. Okay, good. Now, let's go, Mr. John, for our first quarter. And then in the first quarter, you CEO sit in a conference and people ask you, how are you doing? And then the overachievement in plan or the overachievement in operating income, my $1 million is exactly the same as the $1 million of US, big, huge market. It's exactly the same. My 500,000 is exactly the same as the one for Europe. So what happens? Let's say Mr. Ortiz has planned deliver 10 for operating income and delivers 12. And let's say the huge market in the first quarter of the US brings $2.1 billion in the top line and goes down, and they had to do 499, but they made 500. Or they made, like it happened sometime, 496. So they are short 2 million. That's nothing. For the stockholder is big, for the news that we're gonna give is big. And Mauricio, with his small operation and everything, did 3 million more. I can change the stock price of the company. I can change the value for the company. I can change the way a presentation comes in. It's my marginals every quarter. It's my overachievement to plan. It's my overachievement for operating income. It's my contribution in the gross margin. It's my speech of growth in Latin America that will have a contribution. Then I always look at what we present in the New York stock market. And then you go, and Latin America is nothing in the first presentation, like nothing. And then in the other presentations, it start to come as, and we are having great growth in Latin America, and this team is doing this. And then I feel very comfortable, proud that our business is not a growing engine of the company, but it's a profitable business that can change the history during a year.
Got it. Got it. Now, the manufacturing that you have in Latin America, you said Puerto Rico and Costa Rica, are those part of the Latin America P&L, or are they separate? No. And are you in those countries? Is there a tax incentive to be in those countries? Yeah. I imagine Puerto Rico there is, but
yes.
What about Costa Rica?
And in Costa Rica too, and in Brazil, and we have all this. So, John, believe me, if I don't know a lot about products, don't put me to manage them. I would be really bad.
So no, we had a question around manufacturing from one of the
No. We had great guys that know a lot about the manufacturing, that are the best guys there. What I do is when it gets the time for negotiations with governments or whatever, going to speak, all these kind of things, I am there. I can sit with ambassadors, I can sit with everybody, but I wouldn't know how to run a distribution manufacturing site. I have no idea.
So in other words, the way you're set up, Boston Scientific, is Latin America is essentially a sales division of a company that, you know, produces, innovates and produces technology, right?
Not exactly. We have sales. We have, of course, sales, marketing. We have legal, quality, regulatory, logistics, last mile, supply chain, everything, the whole business,
right?
Except the manufacturing. The manufacturing is except for all the company. Manufacturing is a separate division, which is only manufacturing. Once the product gets in a plane and it starts, and it works literally like that. One gets in a plane and leaves the manufacturing plant is my problem.
Right. Got it. Okay. I want to change gears for a bit here and talk about Latin American healthcare systems, you know, pre-COVID versus today. I know the industry, some areas of medical equipment did well during COVID. Most of it didn't do so well. Where are we today from your industry standpoint? But also, I'm going to combine a few questions here.
Yep.
Latin America was, I think most people would say, was underprepared for a pandemic in terms of how it was equipped, in terms of government's communication, et cetera. How is your industry doing today versus pre-COVID, and how is the medical systems in Latin America? Have they learned lessons from what happened? Are they better? Are some better prepared? And how is business different selling into the healthcare industry today versus pre-COVID?
I think pre-COVID we have a lot of lessons. I'll tell you a little bit of our industry. I think Mr. Mike, our CEO, did probably by instinct, because all of us, nobody was prepared for the pandemic. Nobody, no health system, no company, nothing. People live, they say they were prepared, or no, probably they were very intelligent, but they were not telling. But for us, I think our CEO was pretty smart, because what he did was this is the biggest crisis we'll have as a company, and we were first in cut salaries, first in cutting our own salaries. Actually, CEO completely 100%. We had 50% cuts. Everything, we went to airplane mode, let's say, nothing. But the one thing that the company left us in liberty, or at least Latin America, was, Mauricio, you know your market. Do what the recipe you think you have. Just don't spend money. The instruction is, if you have to cut people, you will cut people, but the instruction we have is not cut people, let's cut this. So during the pandemic, what I saw from the hospitals, or from the hospitals part, is we lose a lot of procedures that are the elective ones, which means people that go for stone management, bladder, endoscopies, all these things that can be moved forward. However, the people that needed implanted products, starting from pacemakers, or had a heart stroke, the one thing that I saw is, if we were not great at finances, if we were not prepared with equipment, what I could see was a huge commitment of the health system for patients, like I haven't seen in my life. The doctors coming, and believe me, this was when there was not vaccines. My guys, we bought the best. These guys were like NASA guys coming into hospitals and getting to treat patients. I would say that probably during the pandemic is the time that I won more market share in my business, and it was because my team never stayed home. My team was always in the front. So I can tell you that when people say the doctors, nurses were heroes, there were a lot of heroes from industries. The guys from medical equipment that went to make repairs to the equipment, the guy that flew overnight equipment. We liberated our patents for our breathers, for our machines that could help for COVID. And the one thing that I would say about that is, as soon as our finances started to change, we gave back even the salaries that we had cut to many people. So we said, now that we're making money back, we're making back, and if we took some from you, we're giving it back depending on the level of that you have in your salary scale within the company. So we came back. We started. I think we were in 40. We were in 41 or 38 when we started the pandemic. We went down to 34 to 32 in the stock. And 1 year later, we were in 42. So actually, soon during the pandemic, if I don't know if we can agree that still that we are already off the pandemic or not, but let's say as going out of what was the crisis, we got with a bigger value of our company with a bigger stock price. What I see that has changed was the innovation that came during the pandemic, specifically for remote assistance to doctors, since there were no planes here, since that was a complicated entrance to hospitals. So we came up with a lot of innovation. One of those were the clinical eyes that are like a sort of the what we learn sometimes about those Google glasses or this kind of things, very well manufactured for our company. Actually, we're using them in Formula One assistance to pilots, not for racing, but for health. and then that innovation of having remote control of our operations, really, I mean, going to the surgical part, that will stay. We were good at that. And I think the biggest part that we learned is during 2 years, we still had to train doctors in our products and in products. So we started doing everything not through Zoom, but with more complicated, because we have to simulate that we have operating rooms, that we have procedures. And so we got good. Actually, today or to these days, we're moving to the metaverse to start doing that kind of training. So let's say training, assistance, remote assistance. We're developing something like Alexa for interventions, where people can talk to intelligent machine that will help deliver the results of or the outcomes of the procedures. So that was a good part. The other part, the meetings, that biggest stop for the finances of the companies gave them. I mean, we're so used to making meetings and flying and getting an airplane. You just didn't know what you were doing. I'm going to Mexico. No, next month, I'm going to Chile. Why? I don't know. And so today that gets us more thinking about, will this meeting will be Zoom, or will this meeting has to be presential, or will this, so the P&Ls look much better. And I would say that today, I would say it's normal business as always. I would say that in some countries, all countries for our procedures did well. Some gave more money to hospitals, some gave less money to hospitals, some gave checks to everybody, some benefited companies. A lot of things happened in LATAM. But I would say that for our business, we did good. I would say that for our competitor, exactly in the same line that we did, was also good. I would say that I made better in market share because I was closer to customer. But in my immediate area, we're pretty boutique in that part. In the whole medicine world, we have a very small piece. In that part, I think the pandemic was not good or bad. We just came back with all the procedures. We went back to normal.
Very interesting. Now you have the both the challenge and opportunity of selling to both the private sector and the public sector, and you've commented on a little bit on this, and you talked about compliance for distributors, et cetera. But what are the fundamental differences of selling to those two very different clients? And secondly, how do you, I'm going to combine a question from the audience. How do you see next year versus this year? You've come out of COVID. My understanding is that elective surgeries are up to even above pre-pandemic levels. Probably there's a latent demand that needs to be filled.
Exactly.
So how do you see next year, and maybe differentiate your view of the public sector hospital market versus the private sector hospital and clinical market? Where do you see the opportunities in both, and maybe the challenges? it's a lot there, but appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say that. Oh my God, I would say something horrible. I prefer to sell private than public.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
That's the first. And the reason is many times when you sell to big markets in the government, for the way they operate, there is long-term contracts, and it's hard to get commitment in pricing for dollarized prices. So what happens is you are so excited, John, and this happens. You are so excited. We just won this big bid in Argentina. Oh my God, we just won this big bid in some place, and then you go like, yeah, how long? 2 years, and we're so happy, and all this. The pricing. Oh, I think it was a healthy price. Is it gonna be a healthy price at $4 per dollar or 60 per dollar? And what about if you move it to 90? Oh, no, then it will be horrible. Oh, okay, good. So we have had experiences in every single country. No, well, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, not Mexico now, not in the recent years, but we did have it, where coming up with contracts that we celebrated with champagne, and afterwards we had to celebrate with vinegar. Exactly the same contract, exactly the same thing. Because when the dollar changed, it happened, yes, every time we dispatch an order, we were earning less or we were losing money. So right. The pricing is one of those parts. The second one is there is a lot of movement around government bids, that when I always instruct my guys, if there is too much noise to win a contract, let's move on and find another customer. I don't want to push so hard, because if it gets so hard to push a contract or whatever, it's because you don't want to be part of that. In the other side, many of the governments, I will not say all, but many of them buy a lot of stuff they don't need. Really, they buy a lot of things that they don't need. So you get stuck with contracts where people ask for pacemakers, sophisticated defibrillators, and then they want us to deliver it to hospitals that don't even have the equipment, or don't have a doctor, or don't have a nurse. And I'm not telling that this is because of compliance or because there's corruption. Most of the time it's because people don't know. The biggest problem with public health in many places is that they don't know the system, and they want to do the best, and they find an algorithm, and let's find these hospitals and let's do this, but they are not close to customers. They don't know what the patients need. So I avoid a lot of public bidding. The ones that I like is the ones that I win, and that they will pay me in 6 months, and it's a 6 months, and people tell me, why don't we do it for 2 years, and that will be the best thing that you can listen. And I say no. I say no, because I already know this history. I've lived it too many times to tell. I prefer 2 times 6 months, mostly 1 year. But I even if I have 100% of the business, I don't want more than a big term, because afterwards you have lawyers, legal, coming to you, and you are not doing this part of the contract, or your products are being expired, and I never make a good business out of it. Probably I don't know how to do it really good, but I am more on the private part rather than in the public. I do sell public, and I do sell very good, and I just simply don't participate in many of the bids.
No, fair enough. I mean, there's companies in your space, and certainly in pharma, that don't even touch it. So yeah, I think you guys have, between your distributors and your direct sales and your ability to your insistence upon maintaining a compliant operation is key there. We just have a couple more minutes, and I wanted to sort of, it's always interesting to hear your vision of, we're in the middle of planning season, towards the end of planning season for next year. What do you see for next year, opportunity and challenge versus, say, this year?
Yeah, I see. I just presented plan. Went very well. I see a slowdown, and it comes basically from currency. I see markets more complicated. Colombia. I see. We're watching very carefully Brazil. Currency Brazil. And I would say that those will be like the headwinds, currency, and a lot of, let's see, for example, Colombia. We just changed government. There are nervousness in the system, good or bad, but nervousness because of what the policy of the new Ministry of Health would be. Changing the system, you can agree or not if the changes are good or bad, but definitely there is a stopped the system until people don't know what will happen. That's one. Brazil will happen exactly the same with the new Lula administration. And those slowdowns keep you quarters where people are not receiving budgets, where the hospitals don't have budgets. And I know that, and I will help with my AR ability to do a lot, but I won't do everything because as I told you, I am more P&L oriented. I'm not willing to take huge risks, nothing like that. So I see my profitability going. I mean, I presented a plan that was approved. So if you approve the plan, the board, means that you are growing up and down and having a leverage P&L. So that's what I presented. But we just had one of the best years in our Latin America operation. This year was good. Next year will be good, but we will have a slowdown with that. The other part that we are monitoring a lot for the next years to come is in the power of, let's say, the countries or whatever, what will be with this new, for the first time, we have all the governments in the, let's say, left or whatever, or different. Let's say that except probably Nicaragua and Venezuela, all the other presidents changed. I mean, their parties from their, right, where they came, they changed. In that change, what we want to see is how much China will have influence in our markets, or how difficult or not will be to bring products from other competitors to our markets. When you see what happens in other countries with the Belt and Road Initiative from China, you see that they come, they bring the transportation, the ports, the trains, everything. And of course, they want more product to come. That's the normal thing. So we see that the competitive landmark will get tougher and bigger. And of course, we have to find the answer for that. I will anticipate you that my answer always is, if we can't beat them, then let's make some agreements. The agreements, it's let's compete together. Let's do something for the patients together. Let's complement our product lines with other lines that are in other markets. And I'm more open for that than to try to, I mean, stop what it's inevitable. But this is something that we're working on. I think the space for healthcare in Latin America is still big for everybody to improve. The problem, we have a lot of problems to solve, but if we could solve them, there is a huge amount of things that we could do together.
That's great. Mauricio, there's, we could go on. We could go on about the disruption of a highly intermediated market, the growth of e-commerce, of frontline care products. I mean, there's so much to discuss in this space. Really, really appreciate your insights. What you just talked about in terms of what you expect in terms of headwinds next year, I think resonates with a lot of people. Sitting here in Bogota as I am right now, a lot of people are sort of deer in the headlights, waiting to see, hopeful of, that changes won't hurt their business, but really unsure. And I think there's less uncertainty in Brazil just because the Congress continues to be quite centrist and pro-business. But nonetheless, you have a pretty dramatic change in Brasilia at the executive branch, and that's going to obviously cause a delay in a lot of business decisions. So really great insights. Appreciate that. They resonate, I think, with everyone, regardless of what industry you're in, which is exactly why I wanted you on this call, because although you know this industry backwards, your vision of it goes well beyond healthcare and is really, I think, applicable to so many business people working today in Latin America. So thank you for your time. Always a pleasure to
John, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, my friend, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I hope people enjoyed a little about this mysterious health, really complicated system.
I'm sure they did. Thank you so much. We'll see each other soon. All the best.
Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.